we're at a time right now where we are hungry for sports news, and it doesn't take but just that one thing, and the internet, everybody blows up, and all of a sudden now we're shutting down.
Before the interview gets started, I want to shout out these people for commenting on the last video. Now, if you want to be shouted out in the next video, all you have to do is spam in the comments, Mama Storm's baby boy. That's Tim Storm. He loves his mama. There ain't nothing wrong with that. So go ahead and comment that down below, and I might shout you out in the next video. But I'm not going to take up too much of your time. This is a long video, I know, but try to watch all of it. There's some hidden gems in there, a lot of good stories from a wrestler that has such an interesting path. He started wrestling at 30. Crazy. There's a lot of stuff in there as an NWA fan and as a wrestling fan you want to hear. What's up, YouTube? Right now, I'm here with Mama Storm's baby boy. I'm here with the former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, Tim Storm.
Oh man, thank you. I love that introduction, man. You need to be my hype guy. If I could get you to do that all the time, that would be wonderful. That'd be great.
Definitely, I'm okay with that. It sounds fun to me. Sounds fun to me. First off, before we get started, thank you for agreeing to do this interview. I did not expect you to actually respond to my tweet. I was really amazed, honestly.
No, man. Thank you. I mean, I told you this before we got started. To me, this is a team thing.
Yep.
I am not social media savvy. It's not my gift. It is your gift, right? So my gift is I love being in the ring. I love doing that part of it. We're all in this together, So thank you for letting me, and thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Well, the first question, of course, is, well, how's your quarantine going? I know quarantine's been kind of crazy for everybody, and I know you're also a teacher. So how's been the transition of doing, I guess, Zoom classes?
Yeah, it has been interesting is a good word. It kind of goes hand in hand with kind of what I told you, or what I just said. I'm not social media savvy. My gift as a teacher has always been standing up in front of the kids and trying to get them engaged in whatever I'm talking about, which is sometimes really easy and sometimes really challenging. But that's my gift. I stand up there and I changed from science after 5 years to history, mainly because my gift is storytelling, right? So in history, there's tons of stories. So this whole technology, Zoom meetings, everything online has been a challenge for me. I think, the students are probably way ahead of where I'm at on it. And, going forward, it looks like that's not going to change anytime real quick.
Yeah, unfortunately. My whole entire college, actually, we're now going to be online for next semesters, and it's not the best time in the world, but it is what it is sometimes.
Let me ask you this. What area do you live in?
DC.
Okay. All right. Well, I see on the corner of your shirt what looks like an Eagles, and I was just curious because there's a college not far from, well, it's actually where my son played football. There was the Screaming Eagles. So I was just curious where you're at.
Yeah.
And they're black and green. So that, the headband had me going. All right, we're good, man. We're good.
Yeah, I'm not a big wrestling guy. It's just not my team for me. But,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Well, you know where I live, right?
Oh, you live in Arkansas, right?
I'm from Arkansas. I actually live in Dallas.
Oh, Cowboys guy. Oh.
No offense. It's just the way I grew up in Arkansas. I was there until actually I was married and had kids and all that kind of stuff. We don't have any professional teams of any sport. We have a minor league baseball. We had the Razorbacks. But we have no. So you basically chose your team based on what stations you got. So we got two stations back in the day, right? We got the Super Station, which was which is where a lot of my wrestling came from. But that made you an Atlanta Falcons fan, and that wasn't cool back then. And you got all the Cowboys games. So just by default, I became a Cowboys fan.
That's fair. That's fair. I get that. I'll let that one slide, I guess.
I hope so. I can't. I'm not turning my back on them now. So I gotta hang tight.
I don't know. You just kind of turned heel really quickly with that.
Hey, I've always said I'm a better heel, just nobody knows it. So
actually, because you're a really good face. That's kind of hard to not.
I would have argued this for a really long time. Yes, I know everybody out there's like, no, I don't believe it.
No,
no, but I've changed kind of that opinion. Well, really, it was before the current ownership group. They wanted me to work. Well, as a world champion, you don't work face or heel. You work world champion, and you do whatever in the ring you need to get the story of the crowd over. but they wanted me to start working face. And I remember arguing, going, I really don't know if I can do that. Whatever it is, 7, 8 years later, 10 pounds of gold, NWA Powerrr, all of those things that have happened. I know the world can't envision that. And I'm not even sure I can anymore. But I'm from the Undertaker school of how you work, which is what you do as a face and what you do as a heel are basically the same thing. I just smile when I'm a face and I don't when I'm a heel. Other than that, my in-ring work, pretty much the same. I don't do much of anything. I don't do much of anything anyway, but it's to me, it's all the same. It's the same. It's working the same way. So,
well, you talked about the NWA, and unfortunately, there was all these like rumors and speculations that the whole National Wrestling Alliance was going to close, and obviously that's not true. So,
right.
What was like your initial reaction when you found out or saw all these rumors online?
I did not react to that. Well, here's the deal. I've been a part of a lot of discussions about direction and how how we're going to move forward and all those kind of things. And I'm appreciative to know that it's just such a difficult time for wrestling, for all of us. So, I think that the thing that kind of popped that, that discussion, the rumor mill, was a comment by a guy I really Raven, a guy I really respect. All he was doing was answering a question and giving an opinion, right? I mean, he never said, I know I have the inside scoop here. He was asked, he answered the question, but we're in, especially from, sports in general, we're at a time right now where we are hungry for sports news. And it doesn't take but just that one thing and the internet, everybody blows up and all of a sudden now we're shutting down. Billy Corgan posted a response, just to the media questions in general. And it was exactly just like he always is, exactly what it should be. It is, it's tough. I mean, I'm getting to wrestle very little, just like everybody else. I'm getting to wrestle very little. It's not completely safe. It is, for fans, for the people in the ring, it is not, it's just a weird time. So, his response in my words was, we're not going anywhere, but we're waiting for a time in this difficult environment where it's safe for the fans and safe for our wrestlers to get back and do what we want to do. We'll be back. Nobody knows a time, right? I mean, you ask about the online school, and we're 2 weeks away right now from the start of school, and not just here in Texas, but nationwide. There's a debate going on about how do we start school, where so that's kind of where wrestling's at too. We're searching. Everybody's searching. Wrestling was in such a great spot 4 or 5 months ago. So many options, we're all learning as we go, right? We're adjusting. And when we get to the other side, whenever that is, we'll be back.
Well, you also mentioned that you were still wrestling. So like, where are you currently wrestling now? And like, are there actual crowds there, or is it kind of just like a film for like YouTube type show?
That's a good question. There's not a good answer. I mean, I'll answer it, but it's one of the things that I have. One of the group that I am also involved with is SWE, which started out as kind of a regional promotion. And one of my best friends, my travel partner, my personal referee helps run it. A guy named James Beard, and I've been able to use what we've done with NWA and try to help out the promotion SWE. And right now we're like we're on Fight, we're on Action TV, we're on CW in a lot of places. So it's a growing thing. And as I get older and start kind of searching for what I'm going to do, I never want to stop wrestling. That's the truth. But there's going to come a point, right? I mean, the body breaks down, and it's getting there. So, I'm doing some of the production stuff, the booking. I'm working with young talent, and I'm doing that with NWA too. So that group, we have been doing TV tapings in a very small, kind of like you see everybody else do, very limited crowd capacity. My home field forever, where I won the NWA World Championship, was at a place called Texoma Pro. It was NWA Texoma, up in Sherman, Texas, and they're running shows with very limited crowds. They're trying to be safe. But that's the only opportunities out there right now for the most part in Texas. Well, I got communications with a guy that I work for in Louisiana a lot, basically saying that the state of Louisiana is saying no live events for the rest of the year, canceling all our bookings going. So I'm just saying, I can't, as you probably know, and anybody who's out there wrestling is an addiction, and especially being in the ring and being in front of people. Yeah. And it is, boy, it's tough now. What are we in? What, month 5?
5, 6.
Yeah,
year 2.
Yeah, I've been hungry to get back in there, and I got to do that Friday night and remember again why I absolutely love being in the ring. And now don't get me wrong, Saturday and Sunday I was remembering the parts where I don't like it so much as my body is broke. But being in the ring Friday, man, it was just it's so great to be in the ring.
Of course. So you're saying how this is somewhere that you originally won the NWA title. So how did you originally get started with the NWA to begin with?
I have NWA for me was always wrestling. Okay. So and I'm 56, so you do the math, whatever. But you go back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. That's wrestling to me. Okay. Here's the background, real quick. I grew up in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, Central Arkansas. And because of the centralized location, I got Memphis wrestling in the morning, which was it was Jerry Lawler, Boogie Woogie Man, all of those guys, right? In the afternoon, I got, and it depended on the time, it changed at one point. I got Mid-South, which became the NWA product. So in the afternoon, I got Four Horsemen, Wrestling 1, Wrestling 2, the Assassins. I got that in the afternoon. And then at night, on Saturday nights, I got World Class, which was the Von Erichs, the Freebirds. So I got wrestling 3 times a day. Okay, so now to answer your question, NWA to me, and the reason I'm so passionate about it and love it so much, that was wrestling. I was a huge Arn Anderson fan. Dusty Rhodes was like the guy that I wanted to be growing up. Harley Race, those guys. So I always wanted NWA. And when I didn't start wrestling until I was 30, 31. And I remember my first year of wrestling having somebody say, hey, do you want to go up to this show up in the hills up in Arkansas? And he said, it's called NWA Mid-South or something. And I went nuts in my head. I was like, absolutely. Now, when we got there, it's what we would have called an outlaw. Now we call it independent. It was an outlaw promotion in a high school gym in the dark with, 80 fans. It wasn't NWA. They were just using the name.
Yeah.
But that hunger was always there. The guy who runs Texoma Pro had an NWA Texas and NWA Oklahoma franchise under the old system. And I started working for him. And he actually walked up to me at a gathering. It used to be called the Red River Shootout, which was put together. It's all wrestlers. It's all old wrestlers, anybody in the business. And we get together once a year, still do it. But he walked up to me, he introduced himself, had the guy, make the introduction. And he said, I want you to be my Kerry Von Erich. I want you at every show. I want to book you for, I know. Well, and he couldn't have touched my heart, right? But very, very much more than that.
Yeah.
And my first match with him at his promotion, I won the NWA Oklahoma heavyweight championship. And it has grown from there. Right. So that's my passion. And when I stand up on NWA Powerrr and I talk about my heart is with NWA, it's absolutely true.
Oh, I believe it. It looks genuine.
Oh, it is. That's the weird thing about me is, matter of fact, Billy at one point, I cut a promo that was one of my better promos the day before on TV. And he was we were production. He was kind of telling me this is what, looking for today, just do your thing. And he goes, I got to be honest with you. He goes, I don't know where Tim Scoggins stops and Tim Storm starts. And I went, that's because they're the exact same person.
Yeah.
What you hear, what you see is maybe slightly twinged, turned up just a tiny bit.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear me, that's my heart.
I mean, that's perfect. That's the best gimmick is what you are, honestly. Unless you're like the Fiend or something, then that's who you are. That'd be a little.
You never know. You never know. He may be that guy at home.
I mean, he could be. No one knows what he's into. But between the time that you won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship and then the debut of 10 Pounds of Gold, it was about a calendar year in between. So at this point, you're the world champion. You're the guy that the same title that Ric Flair had or Dusty Rhodes. Right. But a lot of people don't seem to know exactly who the NWA champion was at the time because they just kind of fell out the loop.
Right.
So when 10 pounds of gold starts, are you nervous that like some people are not going to take you as seriously because you're the champion and they didn't know about it beforehand? Or did you have like a mentality of like wanting to prove people like why this title is still important?
Both. I mean, both of those are true. You know, I was a part of the previous ownership group and had and have a great relationship with those guys. It was a whole different world as far as the setup and how things work. You know, I mean, it was set up where there were 50 or 60 franchises throughout the country that paid a yearly fee to use those letters, and you went there as the champion and defended it. Very much a territory type system, and I thrived in that. But I also knew that at least publicly, attention, respect, I knew that it wasn't on the level of the NWA that I grew up with. But again, wrestling had changed, right? I mean, WWE, I mean, there were so many huge players in the game, and we weren't one of the huge players, right?
Right.
Still the same title. So going into the new ownership, I really didn't know if I'd be a part of it or not. I wanted to be. But I wanted at 51, right? So I'm 53, and I've got two guys that I don't know. I know who they are. I mean, I know who Billy Corgan was. I knew some things about, you know, Dave Lagana, but for all I knew, they were going to say, thank you for your loyalty. Good luck in your future endeavors. You know what I'm saying? I had no connection with those guys. So I always go out with I don't want to say a chip on my shoulder, but I want to prove to myself, you know, every time. So, I mean, last Friday night, I've been in this for 25, 26 years. Last Friday night, getting in the ring, I'm proving to myself that at 56, I can go with this young, huge, athletic guy, and I'm proving to myself, right? I mean, so
who was the guy you're wrestling?
He wrestles as Edge Stone. He's one of look him up. He's one of Booker T's guys out of Reality of Wrestling.
Okay.
I'm guessing he was taller than me, so I'm going to guess 6'4", super athletic, super talented. I don't know how many matches. I mean, you know, in my book of how long I've been wrestling, he didn't have the experience that I had, but most, you know, and it wasn't perfect, but anytime you get in the ring for the first time with somebody, you have no idea, right? Because is there chemistry there? So I walked out of there and was like, that's why I love wrestling. You know, that's the reason. Those feelings, and again, we're talking in front of 60 people, so it's not like there's a huge crowd reaction going. But it reminded me, this is why I love being in the ring. So,
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, you started wrestling at 31, 30, correct?
Yeah.
So when you started training, were you treated differently because like, oh, you were the older guy like training to become a pro wrestler?
That never occurred to me. I mean, at the time that I was also the biggest guy in the ring. Now, again, at that point in my life, I was probably 300, 305. I was not extremely fit, but I had a college football background. I was very athletic and very strong. So it never occurred to me that I was the old guy. But, now we look at it and I think, okay, I got into it at an age where a lot of guys are getting out of it, right? I mean, if they start at 21, 22 and they do it for 8 or 10 years, they're getting out.
Yeah.
But I also, I've said this for a long time, and every time I've said it, I've meant it. I've said, I don't know how much time I have left. I really want to maximize the time I had left. But I started saying that at 40, right? So we're saying 16 years ago, I was already thinking, I don't know how much time I've got. So part of me looks at it and says, man, if I could have started when I was 18 or 19 in the 80s, when the territories were banging, I wonder, part of me is also saying, I didn't take my first bump until I was 30 or 31. I wonder if that benefited me in the long run, that maybe not taking bumps for those first 8 or 10 years where other people were, maybe I've had a little longevity because of that. And I don't know the answer. Nobody does.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it kind of just depends on the person, and clearly it has worked out for you. But since you did start at like later in life and you were always like a fan growing up, was there ever like a deterrent that kind of kept you away from actually pursuing the dream of being a wrestler, or is just in general not something you thought about really pursuing at the time?
It was a deal where at the time that I started, I was married, 2 kids, house payment, 2 car payments.
Oh.
I was the vice president of a company in Sherwood, Arkansas. I'm just saying I was doing the life thing.
Yeah.
And happily. And so I looked at it and I thought, even when I called my first call when I decided I wanted to try it, like I called WCW Power Plant, and that was my first call. But I also told them, here's my age, and I've got a good job and a family that I have to support. I'm not willing to walk away from those things to do it. So the other path was better for me. I did a lot of things that first 7 or 8 years athletically, you name it, and I probably tried it, and boy, this sounds arrogant, and probably excelled at it. I mean, I did a lot of things.
There's nothing wrong with gassing yourself up. There's nothing wrong.
It was a deal where, this is so bizarre, but it was like, I remember thinking or making the comment at the time I was playing, and a lot of people out there will giggle at this, but I was playing softball at a very high level where I was traveling almost every weekend, in some cases getting paid to play. I mean, it was a high level, and that was my thing. My knees started bothering me. So don't ask me why I thought, well, wrestling will be so much better on my knees. But that was my thought. I'm gonna transit. I can't do both, because whatever I do, I'm all in or I'm all out, right? So it's like, okay, I can't do both, and I'm gonna try this. And it's worked out pretty well. It's worked out pretty well.
So has your wrestling style always been like a more brawling type, or did you start out kind of like doing the flips and doing the power bombs and everything, or did it evolve?
It's definitely evolved, but I had like two different trainings, and that has benefited me unbelievably. For example, when I trained, my initial training was with a guy named Bill Ash, who is as old school as you could possibly get. I mean, it was in a tiny building in Paris, Arkansas. I drove a couple hours one way, a couple hours back. The ceiling was so low that you couldn't stand on the second row because your head would hit it. So there was no flips, right?
Yeah.
Those things weren't even thought of. It was pure psychology. Mm-hmm. It was more of a shoot. Nobody was smartened up until it was time. You were taught, here's how you take an arm bar to break somebody's arm. Here's how you do it to not break their arm, right? I mean, that's how it was taught. And most of our training was grappling. It was like, okay, we learned these 2 things today. We reviewed the things we did last week. Now let's roll. He would call it rolling, which basically we would get down and shoot, right? We'd get on the mat and try to pin the other guy or make him submit, and we did that every time. Okay. Solid psychology background by the time I was finished. But I had never run a drill, like a cardio drill. I'd never done an agility drill. Those didn't exist for us. And I'm gonna do finger quotes. I wrestled for a couple of years, right? It was terrible. I could brawl. That's easy. I could fight. Yeah. But when I moved to the Dallas area to take a job as a vice president of a company, and just because of the way things worked out, I was there for about 9 months, and they fired their entire upper management staff and started over. And I started training with another group where and ideally I was going to help train. And really what it turned out is the guy who was leading the training had trained with Les Thatcher. And if you ask a question about a drill, he would go, you know what, you don't like this drill? Well, let's ask Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, because they're the ones that taught us these drills, and then see what they think. So it was the exact opposite training. Yeah. It was his mind was not psychology. His mind was more Japanese wrestling, more lucha libre wrestling. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't doing all of those things, but you need a big guy that can post, catch, and So I had both trainings, and over the long run, I know that I can step in the ring with anybody at any style and hold my own. So I never was the flip guy. I also realized pretty quickly that the more physical I got, the more I brawled, the more money I made. So it was, I got booked more that way. So I found my goal. Yeah, I found my niche. So
that's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. But like you've entered like different atmospheres when it comes to wrestling before. Like when you dropped the title to Nick Aldis, you're at CZW. Was like the fan reaction to a more wrestling-based style match than like your typical, light tubes and everything? Like, how is the reaction different from like a normal crowd that you wrestle in front of?
They hated us. It was man. Okay, first let me let me say the right thing, and I mean this.
Right.
Those guys are great athletes.
Yeah.
They do some amazing things. I use this quote all the time. It's like flavors of ice cream, right? I can tell you that mine is chocolate chip cookie dough is my favorite. Yeah. And you can go, you know, there is no wrong flavor, right? So that's just a different flavor. But I knew going in, and it didn't take long for them to prove out that their favorite flavor was not traditional old school wrestling. It was pretty heated, and there wasn't big crowd, loud crowd. I'm gonna be really careful because I like these guys. I mean, the opening match of the show had beds of nails, cut off cans, barbed wire bats, tables in the opening match. So by the time we got in the ring and Tim Storm comes out with the NWA title wearing a suit and tie, they were rabid, and they really could care less what we had to say or what we did. Great crowd, different flavor of ice cream.
You know what? That's a perfect answer. That's a perfect answer. But to almost wrap this up, I actually have a couple questions from a few fans that wanted to ask you something as well. So Vincent said, what's the difference between Tim Storm, the wrestler, and Tim Storm, the history teacher?
Being careful. You know, as a history teacher, it is frowned upon to hit the big boot and the perfect storm in the classroom.
That wouldn't be good.
Personality-wise, pretty much nothing. I think my personality is my personality. I tend to work a little more heel as a teacher.
Oh, now
I teach 12 and 13-year-old adolescents.
Yeah.
I think I temper that with a sense of humor a lot of times, but I smile a whole lot more in the ring than I do in the classroom for the most part. So so that's the difference.
Do a lot of students, do they talk about you being a wrestler, or are they like really excited to see, like, oh my God, my history teacher is also like this like badass wrestler?
It's a mix. On my opening day, and I didn't do this the first 4 or 5 years. My opening day, when I introduced myself, I've learned, let's get that out of the way, because they're going to find out anyway, right? They're going to, last year's class is going to be, so I get it out of the way, and then I say, but just to be clear, we're here to learn U.S. history. I'm not going to talk to you about wrestling much.
Oh man, that sucks.
But it's all over the place. It's like one group has no clue, and about 8 months in, we'll say, Mr. Scoggins, I saw you on YouTube, and you were hitting somebody with a chair, you know. And then I've got guys from day one that are coming up going, Tim Storm, you know, and my straight face, I'll go, who? I don't. Who's that? I'm Mr. Scoggins. I'm a history teacher. So that's, you know, it's a battle all the time, but it's a fun battle.
So you never brought in the title to the class, like a show and tell type thing?
I think I did that 1 year, and 1 year. Well,
world champion. You have to bring it in.
Actually, okay. Ironically, one of the head of the janitorial staff was a huge wrestling fan and knew exactly who I was and brought me videos and all sorts of stuff. And he asked me, would you mind, is there any chance you could bring that up and let me take a picture with you? And the day that I brought it, I said, don't want to make a big deal out of this, guys. Let me show you this. Again, to most 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, I could have brought, and I know this sounds terrible, but I could have brought in a fake plastic belt and held it up, and they'd have been impressed. But to hold up the NWA World's title, which means everything to me, though, right? To them, it's like, oh, yeah, that's cool, Mr. Scoggins. Yeah, that's cool, right? So, but they don't get the enormity. Well, they don't get the enormity of it, right?
Well, that's so disappointing.
Well, but it's like, for me, like going and defending that title in Japan. Yeah. It is revered there. Anybody who's the world champion is a god to the, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, but to hold that up to pre-adolescent teens, it's like, oh, okay, cool. You know, so it's a different world. It's all good. It's all good.
Oh, man, if it was me, I would have been freaking out the entire time. Oh man, I would.
There are some that understand. I mean, I had one of my favorite kids would come in every day and, Mr. Scoggins, can we wrestle? Can I choke slam you, Mr. Scoggins? You know, and I mean, it's like, No, I won't say his name. No, you can't. You can't. But thank you. So they're all different aspects, and you just got to roll with the punches and try to stay focused on history. As much fun as that is. So.
All right. The next guy said something I'm very curious in is what was the transition from like being a teacher to a champion? So kind of like we already said, like how do you go from like on Friday you're assigning homework, on Tuesday you're using steel chairs?
Hey, watch this. This is gonna be good. I'm a champion no matter what I'm doing. Huh? You like what I did there? It's I've been doing it for so long. There's no transition, right? I mean, it's like I've been wrestling now for 25 years, almost 26.
Wow.
I've had a lot of different. I've been teaching for 11,
okay.
So it's a deal where I'm the same person on either side, right? I'm just wearing more clothes as a teacher, thankfully, right, for them.
Yeah,
So
that'd be a different type of look.
Yeah.
Pretty casual, Jesus.
Yeah, a little over the top casual, and not the distraction that 13 and 14-year-olds need in any sense of the word. So, but the transition for me, it's just who I am. I mean, it's like my life has been, God, family, wrestling, job in there somewhere, right? So it's all one. It all transitions one into the other. So
perfect. Well, and the last question from a fan said, if you could pick any male or female wrestler for a 6-person tag team, who would it be?
Ooh, okay, wait. Do I need to name 5 wrestlers?
No, just 2 people that you would pick on your side.
Oh, okay, I got you. Wow, living or dead?
Let's go living. Let's make it current wrestlers, not even retired. Current. Make it a little harder.
That does make it harder because that knocks a bunch out. I'm an old school guy, right? So
I gotta get you the good questions.
No, it's good. If I start listing not living or retired, the list is all the people I've talked about. It's Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race, Terry Funk, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson. I mean, it's all of those guys.
Yeah, of course.
Living, the easy choice is AJ Styles. I think that AJ is probably still one of the best wrestlers in the world today, and in a very real way, just as good of a person. The third one, it's tough. Man, okay. I'm going to nope, this was out of the blue. Nobody's going to expect this one at all. Dustin Rhodes is the guy that I choose.
I can see that. I thought you were going to say like if you could pick one female wrestler, which one?
Huh. Okay, again, this won't surprise you either. I mean, you think of my NWA love and history. Boy, and I have some people out there that are going to roll their eyes and cringe at this one, but I'm going to go Charlotte Flair.
I know. I didn't think about that answer.
I know.
Oh, man.
I'm a wrestling historian more than I'm a U.S. historian, right? I love the legacy. I love the name, the fact that she's chosen Charlotte, Sweet Charlotte. And she's what, I don't know, 6'1", athletic,
Yes.
So, and again, I'm not gonna sit here and go best female wrestler in the world. I don't know who the best female wrestler, and there's a ton of good ones out there to choose from, right?
Oh, I mean, she's definitely in the conversation. If not of all time, she's definitely in the conversation right now. Like that's.
Well, I have a friend that will watch this later, and I'll just tell her now. I'm sorry, I know that wouldn't have been your choice. Thinking of you, but that's my choice.
See, I was hoping you were gonna say like Sasha Banks or something, but Charlotte Flair, that's a good one.
Again, it's like there's so many talented. I mean, this may be today at the current situation, the last year, there may be more talented, legitimate, athletic female wrestlers in wrestling than there has ever been in any time period. There are so many, and there was a time when I was not a fan of female wrestling, because they were basically going with choosing models and teaching them to wrestle as opposed to choosing wrestlers. Man, there are. I mean, I'm not a good name person current, but there are 20, 25 women out there that can just go.
I mean, trust me, that's more than accurate, because there's hundreds out there. They're amazing. But I guess the final question is: recently you've been doing like wrestling like seminars and clinics and whatnot. What's been like the one thing you've like had to critique for almost every guy or girl that's like showed up to one?
the thing that I preach, and I usually do these seminars with James Beard, who is, we are the same mind. Where we're sitting right now in the business is both of us have a limited time left in ring.
Yeah.
It is now our job to pass on the knowledge that we've got. And he's the only American referee in history to work for every major promotion in the US and Japan. He booked for World Class. He booked for New Japan when it was the big, anyway. We always talk about the importance of making everything count, that there's nothing that happens in the ring that shouldn't mean something, that from the time you walk through the curtains to the time you go back through the curtains, you're telling a story. And it doesn't matter how athletic you are or aren't.
Yeah.
If you get emotion, buy-in from the story that you're telling from the fans, then you're doing your job. And you can do that with a huge amount of athletic ability or none. But on the other side, you can be the best athlete in the world, and if you're not connecting, then you're not doing your job, right?
Sure.
So what I tell them is focus on the important things, which is everything small. Always work hard. Always give the fans their money's worth. Connect somehow. Doesn't matter if you're working face, heel, or in between. Connect with the fans, because you got two people to make happy. Number one, the fans. Number two, what's the promoter asking you to do?
That's true.
Everybody else, they're not the ones that are paying you. They're not the ones that are going to come back and see you. You got to make everybody money. That's the deal.
I mean, that perfectly said. What else can there be said? But I guess that wraps up almost everything that we have. So thank you again, Mr. Tim Storm, for doing this amazing appearance.
My pleasure, man. I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Let's do it again sometime.
Oh, definitely. I always have more questions.
Okay.
I guess as a NWA fan, I think for a lot of NWA fans, like, this is always something cool to see what other NWA guys are up to at the moment. And also for myself, because I'm trained to be a pro wrestler currently. And my biggest goal right now is to get to the NWA. So
okay. Well, let me know, man. We'd love to have you there.
Definitely.
And if everything goes right quickly, hopefully that will be soon for both of us.
Yeah, hopefully. So. Mainly for you, because you got to get that world title back one day. I know the stipulation was there, but you got to get it back one more time.
I don't want to end this on a downer. COVID is stealing my career right now. I only have a limited time left. I'm serious. I only got a limited number of matches left.
Yeah.
Now is part of that time. Who knows if I'll get another shot? Nothing would make me happier. The only thing that could exceed the dream and the joy of winning the world championship is to win it again.
We'll end it right there on that. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you really enjoyed, this is Tim Storm. If you don't know where to find him on social media, where can they find you?
Tim Storm 01 on Instagram, Tim Storm on Facebook, and Tim Storm NWA on Twitter. As you see, I respond to just about, if it's, as long as it is above board, everything looks cool, I'll respond to just about anybody. So it's, I think it's social for a reason. It's an exchange. So thank you, man. I truly appreciate your time. Thank you for having me on. And everybody watch this. Watch this guy. This is it right here. This is what it's all about.
See, I like that. I'm going to start using that in videos now. I'm going to take that little clip. Oh, that's about to be used in everything. But thank you guys for watching this video. If you really enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, share it, or subscribe. I say subscribe, not subscribe, because I'm cool and I like videos. So yeah. And we outie.
We going up like 1,000. I'ma flex just like a MuscleManMalcolm. We going up like 1,000. I'ma flex just like a MuscleManMalcolm. When it just like 1, 2, 3. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel, this will squeeze.